Okay. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Rebel News live stream panel discussion on this, a Friday, October 24th, 2025. And we have an action-packed panel for you today, and there's so much to talk about. I'm David Menzies, and I'm joined by my colleague. I think if she was a superhero, we'd call her Ostrich Girl, saving the lives or trying to of ostriches everywhere. I see you're back in from the farm, Drea Humphrey. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. As long as the birds are alive, I'm doing great. And still no word from the Supreme Court. So I'll be back at the first sign of that decision coming in. But yeah, I'm excited for the panel today at Rebel Roundup. And for those of you who are maybe not familiar or kind of forgot, there's a way that you can be a part of this panel too. And so if you're watching on YouTube, you can join in, give us a comment, feedback. Sometimes you guys break the news because we're busy here by doing a super chat, and donations $5 or more. We read those, incorporate those in the show, and they help our journalism continue. If you're watching on YouTube after the live and you want to help us out as well with our journalism, you can donate through a super thanks. And then, of course, we always like to talk about our free speech friends at Rumble. And I know many of you, like me, are like, I'm only watching on Rumble. So if you're on there, you can join the panel and our discussion through Rumble Rant.
Fantastic. And without further ado, let's introduce our panel guests. I have Kirk Ludimov. He is not only a political analyst, he's an economic analyst. You sound like a very smart person to me, Kirk.
I'll try not to disappoint.
Thank you so much. And of course, last but not least, my favorite independent journalist in the entire GTA. It didn't start out that way. There was a little, standoffishness in the beginning going back to yesteryear. I got, that, memory of high school, when I was trying to ask somebody out for the prom date. But nevertheless, she has warmed up to me, the lovable one. It is Karima Saad. How you doing, Karima? Last time I saw you was a couple of nights ago at a Chinese restaurant in Chinatown. We ate some very interesting barbecue dishes, did we not?
Yeah, it was a Korean barbecue, and it was my first time at that place. It was great.
Well, there you go. And as they say, you always remember your first. Anyway, let's get down to business. Certainly not a slow news day, and what's dominating the headlines in this country and south of the border is, of course, that I think ludicrous $75 million ad buy by the Doug Ford progressive conservatives, trying to get under Trump's skin and basically succeeding, which I don't think is a good strategy. They are quoting Ronald Reagan from 1987, speaking negatively about tariffs. And, we'll go around the panel, but I think, guys, this is something taken out of context, because yes, Ronald Reagan did say that, but I'm old enough to remember 1987, and Ronald Reagan was very much all about tariffs. For Japan, it was motorcycles and cars and computers. For Europe, it was steel makers. For Canada, it was softwood lumber. So what Reagan was saying and what the reality of Ronald Reagan was, and believe me, I am as big a Ronald Reagan fan as you could meet. But they're two different realities. But nevertheless, if Doug Ford's goal was to piss off Donald Trump, then I guess this ad campaign is a success, because where do we go from here? Drea, we'll start with you. This is a soundbite from almost 40 years ago. What was the point of resurrecting this, especially given that Doug Ford or his people must have known this was going to be kryptonite for Donald Trump?
It's just so embarrassing. That was my first thought when I heard about this. But what was the point? The point is propaganda, to make the people lie to themselves. That we are losing the tariff trade war, if you will, and that goes against everything that the voters for Carney, and Doug Ford with his hard stance is doing. So $75 million to go ahead and with this desperate attempt. So that's what I think the point was, to deflect away from how horrible we're doing in this economic trade war, or whatever you want to call it. And I just want to point out, now we're in trouble. We're in big trouble now. We really pissed off Trump. He is such a Reagan fan. Sounds like you are too. I know on one of his posts at the bottom, he put in big cap locks letter, "Make America Great Again." That was Reagan who popularized that slogan, and he uses that slogan. I mean, of all of the ads you could have faked, why would you choose that one? Oh my gosh.
It's really something. And Kirk, what is going on here? Is this Doug Ford being bad cop to Mark Carney's good cop? Is that the strategy here? And if so, do you think this strategy is working? Because I'll tell you, when Trump says, that's it, the trade negotiations with Canada are hereby terminated, as Drea said, in block cap letters, that means he's yelling, I guess. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, it's such an awful mistake, really, just to completely underestimate what's happening into U.S., but also the persona of Donald Trump. You don't start, I guess, competing two presidents against each other into U.S., especially someone who's quite loved, as Reagan is for a lot of people. It's pretty easy to take quotes out of history and use them for the wrong reasons, and this is essentially what Doug Ford has done. Let's remember, as you pointed out, Ronald Reagan did use tariffs and was for tariffs as a tool for trade. He was against general blanket tariffs as a tool, but he used tariffs, 200% tariff threat against Spain. He was a big he put 100% tariffs on Japan's semiconductor industry. And he used the quota system, which is even harsher than tariffs in many ways. So to pull that out, this video out of history, at a time which this actual speech was trying to address globalism and trying to bring essentially put an olive branch out there for other countries. That's what this speech was really about. And Doug Ford and his ad team, I don't know who's hired, but completely got the wrong end of where this video actually came from and what's the basis of it. So now, and on top of it, the Liberal government just added tariffs themselves to GM and Stellantis cars, how many cars they can bring into Canada before they add tariffs to them. So it's quite hypocrisy of what's happening here.
And Kirk, do you think part of the problem, because I think this is part of the problem, that Doug Ford doesn't understand Donald Trump? And if I was advising the premier, I would say to him, read The Art of the Deal. Even better, read Newt Gingrich's book, which is titled Understanding Trump. Now, I get it, because these books don't have rhyming couplets like a Dr. Seuss book. That's a big ask. But is this what we're dealing with? A complete failure to understand the psychology of the president?
Well, Doug Ford essentially loses at every single press conference. It's becoming extremely embarrassing. If Doug Ford wants to have good faith and upper hand in negotiation, he needs to solve issues in his own province. He has a huge minerals and rare earth deposits in the Ring of Fire area. That's Ontario has been talking for 20 years just to build a road there, just to start mining. So if he wants to solve Ontario's issues, Ontario economics issues, he needs to start solving stuff in his own backyard. None of them has anything to do with Donald Trump, but it will help Doug Ford, it will help Canada, it will help Ontario to have the upper hand in negotiations a little bit, or in a better position for negotiations, because we have what Donald Trump wants. And Donald Trump, the U.S., just went to Australia to make a rare earth and a mining deal instead of next door to Ontario.
Unbelievable. Karima, what say you? I mean, how is it that Doug Ford seemingly appointed himself the Minister of Foreign Affairs and he's speaking for Canada? And I don't think We have simpatico here with the other premiers. Certainly not Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe. Certainly not Alberta Premier Smith. So they must be cringing at what Doug Ford is doing. But how do you assess what seems to me such entitlement by Ford?
I think picking up on what you said about the psychology of Donald Trump, you need to understand the psychology of wrestling. I think that's the lens through which all of this makes some semblance of sense.
Yeah.
And, what we have here is ego and emotion. This ad, which, $75 million is nothing to sneeze at. Then you think about this as political advertising directed at citizens of another country. So that's, to your point about does he have some sort of foreign authority? No. So that's an odd choice for a public official to make. But the ad itself, in measuring its effectiveness, what was the goal? If the goal was to trigger an emotional response, it succeeded. If it was to kind of get a little bit of a gotcha, I think that would be a success as well. Does it further our economic interests in dealing with the United States? There, I'm not so sure. As far as it being a misrepresentation, yes, Ronald Reagan did selectively apply tariffs. On the whole, I think he was more on the side of the spectrum of free trade. So these aren't AI quotes, they are actual quotes, and edited and put together in such a way as to back the narrative. And that's what political advertising or propaganda is. So, it has obviously upset Donald Trump, I think is maybe an understatement. And this is all part of Canada's posturing, from elbows up to punch back to this. That's all in the same vein of kind of a reactive and not really grounded in our actual strengths, right? So this is all posturing that will have very real economic consequences. I think the way that this whole trade debacle has unfolded is only hurting citizens, right? At the granular level, it'll take a while to feel the nationwide effects of it. So, they're our cousins, and we should be dealing better with each other and not cheap shots, I think.
Yeah, and Karima, when it comes to elbows up, as you mentioned, in the department of there's plenty of blame to go around here, we all know the way that Mark Carney won the federal election back in April. It was based on two planks. One, I'm the economic guy. I was a governor for the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England. I understand how finances work. Two, I'm the guy that knows how to deal with Trump. And here we are, 6 months later, and I don't even know what's being discussed. There's been no movement. We're just seeing layoffs after layoffs. And I can tell you, the auto plants losing hundreds or thousands of workers. That's one thing. I know Catherine Swift of the Concerned Canadian Manufacturers, she's been talking about those little businesses where 75 people, 50 people are losing their jobs. It gets no ink, but it all adds up. So isn't this an incredible failure of what Mark Carney promised back in April?
There's obviously a disconnect between what was promised and what has been delivered. And I would even suggest that making those promises and turning that into a plank of his election platform exacerbated things to a certain degree. Donald Trump endorsed, or rather said that he would prefer to work with Carney over Poilievre. And the motivations behind that were unclear at the time. Still don't know what it was, but I could see how how things have unfolded is working out for Trump.
Well, Drea, on Karima's point, I would argue, and I know I might be labeled as a conspiracy theory freak here, but I really believe that Brookfield Asset Management, which has $1 trillion in assets, which of course under Carney was moved to the US, I really believe they're running the country. we know that the lion's share of Mark Carney's assets in his blind trust are U.S. based. So, really, does Mark Carney want to see Canada succeed at the detriment of the U.S.? I don't think that's good for business for him.
Yeah, it's not good for Canada, for, us to have the success. And if you go to his values book, that was a dead giveaway too of what he really thinks should happen and how, if that all plays out, how it would benefit Canada as well. So you're right. Brookfield gets to keep going up, up as America does well and Canada doesn't. And so that's something else. And just going back to how right from the start, like it didn't even seem like he was trying, like he wasn't even working for so long. And so now, are we really surprised? There's no elbows up at all.
And Kirk, it's amazing too, because I think Carney is about to engage on a 9-day trip to Asia. And he's always talking about we need different trade partners. We don't need to be so reliant on the U.S., or we shouldn't be. Yeah, but here's the thing. What do the countries of the world want from Canada? Are mineral resources that this government will not develop because of all this green climate crapola they keep saying. Why doesn't Carney greenlight the oil and gas sector and sell the world what they want? And we know Germany, Greece, Japan, they've been coming to Canada begging for billions of dollars in sales of those assets. The former Prime Minister, Trudeau, he said there's no business case here. I mean, you're an economic analyst, Kirk. I think that's a pretty big business case right there.
Yeah. I mean, we only export so much, right? And even our LNG that we export into the US, because we don't have enough facilities to export it anywhere else, they're selling it to Europe at a huge premium. So Canada's essentially turned itself into a resource colony to the US. There's nothing wrong with that in general. The issue is just everything else is mismanaged, and we do need to, we can't replace the trade with the US. It is extremely fruitful. It's 18% of our GDP, but we can add to it. The issue is we haven't done any infrastructure to do so because of all the green and fighting with First Nations, all the decarbonize oil barrel, do this and that, carbon tax. So even if we start building infrastructure now, we still won't be exporting to new areas, to new parts of the world for at least 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 years. So we not only we have a lost decade, we're coming on to the next lost decade because we just don't have anything to start exporting yet from a resource point of view. Mm-hmm. The other aspect of it, we don't have anything else that we export. We don't develop tech industry. We don't have anything, any big services, big innovation that we can export to the world. And this is where the biggest hurdle is for Canada. We need to start focusing on what else can we do economically except just rely on capex investment and heavy industry that will take years to develop because we sat on our hands for a decade.
100%, Kirk. And Karima, we should go back to, it's not just the message Doug Ford delivered and will be delivering during the World Series, if you can imagine, further inflaming things, but it's the tone. And I go back several months ago when Doug Ford said about Michigan, he will turn off the electricity with a smile on his face. I mean, the communication here, I thought, was disastrous. Why not say, look, you're putting me into a corner. I don't want to do this. No, but he said a smile on his face. And by the way, careful what you wish for. I understand Canada's natural gas goes through the state of Michigan, as does our jet fuel. So if Michigan were to retaliate, I guess it's popsicle time in Canada for Canadians. What do you make of Doug Ford's messaging?
It's like we are in a sitcom, and then there was the school bully, and for whatever, they introduce now a bigger bully. And so Doug Ford's tactics and what he is used to doing and his style and shtick, when it's replicated and then applied to Donald Trump, it doesn't have the force behind it, first of all, and it's a little bit buffoonish. So that's kind of what we are left with. Um, it is reckless, and I go back to ego-driven and emotional, or at least that's how it comes across. And the implications are quite serious. So I think it's not good diplomacy. And maybe that would be like collectively a return to diplomacy and civility, even in the face of, and I appreciate that you're dealing with a volatile individual on the other end. But someone who, you can still plan around that and understand and make an effort to understand that psychology. And I think that everything has just been reactive and kind of for sound bites and but foolish.
No, I think you're right, Kareem. And it seems that Doug Ford doesn't learn a lesson going back to that threat to turn off the electrical power to Michigan. I mean, he played chicken with Doug Ford, with Donald Trump on that. The only difference was Donald Trump was driving a Hummer. And by that, I mean the old school one, not that electrical EV abomination GM is selling right now. And Doug Ford was riding a tricycle, and he went right into the ditch, and he almost took the Ontario economy with them. But, Drea, slightly switching gears, Donald Trump also had another social media post, and he focused on what U.S. farmers are being charged in the way of, I guess, indirect tariffs, as much as 400%. And of course, what he's talking about is supply managed commodities. We know that's a closed shop in Canada. And in fact, it's a domestic tariff on Canadian consumers. We're talking eggs, dairy, turkey, and chicken. And how about this as a concept? It's really Mark Carney's bailiwick, but come to the table and say, you know what? We're ready to negotiate a deal with supply management. We're ready to have U.S. commodities, that supply management comes into the country. But for some reason, this is a political third rail in Canada with all parties except the People's Party of Canada. It is simply not to be negotiated. I don't think we have a choice, Drea.
I think it's like because they made it, hey, this whole election is about voting out Trump, as though you can do that from Canada somehow, that they see it as if we negotiate, we look weak. When it's like, no, that's exactly what we need you to do for this country. So, I mean, I can't get into the heads of why that's happening, but it would seem that it's something along those lines.
Yeah. What about you, Kirk? Is it time to maybe put the sacred cow of supply management out to pasture? Is it time to give a laurel leaf to Trump as opposed to empty and hollow threats in terms of what we're going to do? I think that's part of understanding Trump. Give him a victory, and then he'll be more open, I think, to our concerns. And you know what? It's win-win. If more competition at the supermarket means lower prices for Canadians in those commodities, what do we have to lose?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a nice olive branch from Canada. Trump already signaled that this has to be part of the negotiations anyways, so it's coming. Canada is a series of economic protectionism. There is so little competition anywhere you look. We have only a few telecoms. We have only a few banks. We have this whole dairy supply chain protectionism. We need to open our economy. We can't just blame Trump for everything. We need to have competition. We need to invite competition. That's how we reduce our own inflation. That's how we reduce our own costs. We need to see Canadian companies and other companies competing with the world or competing with other companies. We just can't keep suffocating our economy and then blaming someone else for it.
Well said, Kirk. And, Karima, to Kirk's point, that is the reality of living in Canada, isn't it? We seem to have incredible tolerance for monopolies and oligopolies. And I mean, the telecoms, as Kirk mentioned, airlines, banks, certainly in most provinces, there are provincial liquor monopolies, for the sale of booze. I say we got to get with the program and have reciprocal and free and fair trade with the Americans. If we opened up competition in Canada to these oligopolies, I think that will make Trump smile, and it'll certainly make me smile, because when I look at my cell phone bill every month, I can't believe what I'm paying.
It is a bizarre, I think we are not maybe a total anomaly, but it is unusual how many industries in Canada are so closely held, and we have this illusion of choice sometimes, but when you drill down to it, not really. I understand that there are, concerns about being too open and stifling or crushing kind of the Canadian element. What we have right now are crutches, and it's, I think, generally at the expense of residents. So, if only we could recenter and make that the primary objective. How do we improve life for everyone overall? And it increasingly feels like that's not even on the top 3 consideration list. So,
and we ultimately are the losers. Why don't we change gears? Why don't we throw to a video? It's Mark Carney speaking with reporters about Trump's announcement last night, the announcement pertaining to that ludicrous, I think, $75 million ad by Doug Ford. And why don't we see what Mark Carney has to say, and then we'll react to it.
For months, we have stressed the importance of distinguishing things we can control and things we can't control. We can't control the trade policy of the United States. We recognize that that policy has fundamentally changed from the policy in the 1980s, 1990s, 2000s. And it's a situation where the United States has tariffs against every one of their trading partners to different degrees. And it's in that context that our officials, my colleagues, have been working with their American colleagues on detailed, constructive negotiations, discussions on specific transactions, specific sectors, steel, aluminum, and energy. And a lot of progress has been made. And we stand ready to pick up on that progress and build on that progress when the Americans are ready to have those discussions, because it will be for the benefit of workers in the United States, workers in Canada, and families in both of our countries. Now, what we can control, absolutely, is how we build here at home. And that's the focus of Budget 2025, generational investment here in Canada. And what we can also control, or at least heavily influence, is developing new partnerships and opportunities, including with the economic giants of Asia, which is the focus.
Dre, I don't know about you, but listening to Mark Carney seems to be a substitute for Sominex so often. I'm left reiterating that Kirk Douglas soundbite. What are you saying? What was he saying there?
Yeah, he's just going. All I could see was him saying, "Yeah, we're screwed. We don't know what we're doing." Or maybe he knows what they're doing. But it's true that they don't have the control, but it's also true that they've dropped the ball tremendously. But even when they do have control, like again, $75 million under Ford being spent, well, that could have gone into helping the situation that we are in, or when they have the control, even at the ostrich farm, for example, you have the top American health officials saying, hey, we'd like to partner with you on the science that those birds are involved in. Please don't kill them. We'll pay for the science. We'll pay for the testing. They can even come here and we would just directly benefit as Canadians from that trade deal, and we still won't do it. I mean, that's how Canada is. And again, it's just so embarrassing. Yet there you have Health Secretary RFK Jr. not writing just one letter to Canada, but two letters saying, please. Meanwhile, you have China farming ostriches because they get it. You know what I mean?
You know, Drea, that is an excellent point you made. And I go back to our beloved big boss man, Ezra Levant, last week when he asked a minister about that as a caveat to getting the tariff tiff ended. Why not do something about these ostriches? Because we know that RFK Jr. has a real interest in this. She would not answer the question. And by that, I don't mean baffle gap. I mean, she wouldn't say anything.
Yeah, it was really embarrassing. And it's not just RFK, it's head of Medicare, Dr. Oz, it's the FDA. I mean, they really see an opportunity that Canada is hell-bent on slaughtering in this research, and they've taken a look into it. So if that's just another example of it just doesn't seem like they're trying at all for Canadians.
Kirk, one thing that I jotted down as Carney was droning on, he said one of the things we can control is what we build at home, and I totally agree. So why not build up the oil and gas sector? Why not build pipelines? I remember in April at a Pierre Poilievre presser in St. John, New Brunswick. It was at the port of St. John. It is an enormous port. And Poilievre made the profound point that had the Energy East pipeline been approved, this would have been the final destination. And what does that mean? That means every day, 1.2 million barrels of oil would be going to market. And when I say market, I don't mean south to the US. I mean across the Atlantic to Europe. So this would have been, to me, win, win, win. We develop the sector, we build pipelines, and we develop a new market for Canadian energy. But the answer then was no, and it looks like the answer now is no. How do you make sense of this?
Yeah, it's, there's really three points to what he said, and he keeps repeating the same stuff. What we can't control, the big issue, the big risk we're facing there, which Doug Ford may have thrown a big wrench into, is the reason our trade with the U.S. is so competitive and so low on tariffs to begin with is because of the CUSMA deal, which is essentially starting to get negotiated now. So any deviation from what we have now is already an economic risk for Canada, which we should not be risking to begin with. The other aspect of what we control is all the red tape we have inside of Canada. We just need to get building and stop talking about it. He does not need to go to Malaysia, or he doesn't need to go to anywhere. Like our deal with Malaysia is less than 0.2% of our exports. It's essentially a rounding error. What we need is actually work at home. And the other aspect of it, which is tied to what we control, he's talking about his record upcoming deficits, which are highly inflationary and devaluing our currency, as an investment into Canada. Those things are not needed at all. We need to cut how much waste our public sector is spending on. Every other day we see new support for some gender fluid beings in Africa somewhere, or women education in Bangladesh. We have no way to track the money. But the bigger aspect of it, Canada has lost over $100 billion of investment this year.
Jeez. Just
from Canadians. Okay, so Canadians chose to invest over $100 billion into the US. We have over $2 trillion, almost $2 trillion of Canadian money sitting in the US. You want to grow the economy? Do something to bring the money back into Canada. It's our own money. We just don't choose to invest it here.
No, well said, Kirk. And, Karima, we're getting to the end of the racetrack in terms of the time that we have for you and Kirk. So I'm going to give you the last word on this. I think there is added urgency to cut a deal, think outside the box, sacrifice supply management if need be. And by that, Karima, I speak of what I consider the most overlooked, underreported story of 2025. Certainly Pierre Poilievre mentioned it on the campaign trail. It was the Privy Council report that looked at Canada in 2040, less than 15 years from now, as being a dystopian society where the rich have either fled to other countries or live in gated communities, and the rest of us are illegally hunting, fishing, and foraging just for the bare necessities. And Karima, I can tell you, and I know you see it too when you go out there, the homelessness, the use of food banks, the high unemployment. I would argue that we are perhaps already in a recession. I think it's inevitable going into next year. So last word goes to you. If you had the ear of Doug Ford and Mark Carney, what would you tell them? Because what they're doing now, this good cop, bad cop shtick, it ain't working.
That's a tall order for the very bleak picture that you just painted. So I don't know that I have the silver bullet words. But if they would both just maybe stay off of the television, just stop the posturing, stop the word salad, stop pouring liquor, and just stop, just stop.
Oh, isn't that amazing, Karima? I agree with you. Doing and saying nothing would actually be an upgrade. And by the way, when you mention a silver bullet, are you implying that either Carney or Ford are werewolves?
No, I think werewolves have a very masculine energy, so I wouldn't.
Not Mr. Burns.
There you go. Well, we're only a week away from Halloween. And yeah, isn't that that was the most stupid photo op ever for Doug Ford, pouring Crown Royal down the drain. Think about that. This is a product distilled in Gimli, Manitoba. All the ingredients comes from Canada. There is a bottling facility that is safe in Valleyfield, Quebec. Diageo, the corporate parent, has its head office and its warehouses in the GTA. And Doug Ford says, I'm declaring war on Canadian whiskey? Give me a break. So we'll end with that lunacy. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I think maybe he had a couple of Crown Royals before that presser.
It looks like a rap video. Like, this is for my dead homies with the black guys in the
well, you know what, Drea? That it wasn't supposed to take that long. That orchestrated photo op was a fail because the dummies on Ford staff got him the big bottle of Crown Royal. Don't ask me how I know this, but and it's got this stopper in it that regulates the flow. So they should have at least have taken the stopper out, because you can see he's getting frustrated. He's shaking the bottle to get all the whiskey out. So it was a fail on so many levels. Kirk, Karima, thank you so much for joining the panel. I hope you'll come back. And I guess like most of Canada, I suppose, maybe there's one thing that unites us. It's the Blue Jays against the LA Dodgers. Or did Doug Ford do something wrong to affect that as well?
Go Jays.
All right, then. Thank you,
Thank
Karima.
you.
Thank you, Kirk. And really appreciate your contribution. There you go.
Appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Don't settle for being on the rate of last resort if you don't have to be. Check your most recent electricity bill. If it says the words rate of last resort on it, then there are likely better options available for you. In fact, you could save hundreds of dollars per year by switching plans. Check your bill, then go to ucahelps.ca to explore your options. You will likely find a better rate and could have hundreds more in your pocket by the end of the year. A message from the Government of Alberta.
Gun bans make great distractions.
Trudeau may be gone, but Carney has picked up his same
We
rhetoric.
will quickly, and I mean quickly, reinvigorate the buyback of
Hunters, collectors, competitors, and defenders of tradition are still being targeted, while criminals run wild under Liberal policy. But we are fighting back. Join us, Canada's National Firearms Association, in defense of freedom.
Oh, and folks, a little bit of an apology here. Super producer Efren just reminded me that I experienced another Joe Biden moment by forgetting to let our guests promote where you can find them. So for Kirk, it's Kirk Lubimov. That's spelled Lubimov. You can find him on Twitter, as you can Karima Saad. They're very worthwhile checking out. Gee, Drea, can you imagine? We have spoken about two ex-presidents, Ronald Reagan, Joe Biden. Talk about the best of times and the worst of times. What a dichotomy.
Quite the contrast. Hopefully we'll have a contrast soon here in Canada. Before we move on to the next subject, I guess we'll finish off with the super chats again. That's the way you can join in on the conversation on YouTube, Rumble Rant on Rumble. So the name is cut up a bit off here, but it's Eastern something. Says Carney will use this to push more Orange Man bad. And so, yes, that's always the goal. And it's effective. I got to give it to them. For some reason, Canadians really like to act as though they have some influence over Donald Trump. So, and then Scottfield 10 donates $5, and thank you guys both for your donation. Says the problem with Ford's blast is that the U.S. Supreme Court is today or early next week ruling on Trump's use of tariffs. Thus, the ferocity of the return fire. Of course, yeah, Ford is not taken seriously in the U.S. And that's absolutely right. Basically, Trump said that Ford, Canada, is trying to interfere with that decision. So, of course, he's, even more mad than he would be if there wasn't a court case about it.
Unbelievable. I could sure use a shot of Crown Royal right now. You know what? I know we have a hard out at 2 p.m. and there's so much to get to. Let's completely switch gears. It looks like Joe Rogan and comedian Andrew Schultz are weighing in on Canada's land acknowledgements. And I think this is right in your wheelhouse, given what's happening in Richmond, BC right now. Mm-hmm. Why don't we throw to that video? And I want to hear your analysis of this, Drea.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to them. I think it's funny when governments do these things to enforce care. Anytime I'm performing in Canada, if it's on an indigenous area, they make me do
a land acknowledgement.
And I remember the first time they told me that, I was like, "You want me to do what?" And they're like, "Yeah, we want you to let them know that this used to be native land." And I'm like, I remember telling it to the chief of the tribe, and I'm like, "Brother, that kind of seems like I'm bragging." I'm going up there and be like, "Yo, this used to be yours, but the boys came in, got y'all the fuck out of here." You really want me to go and remind everybody what happened before the comedy show?
You know what my favorite part about that is? It's a land acknowledgement, but also saying, we're not giving it back.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We stole it, but it's ours now.
So what do we do? Who are we doing this for?
Sorry. We're going to acknowledge the fact that we're on stolen land. But the thing is, these people that go along with that are also the same people that want no borders and no one's illegal being anywhere. Christopher Columbus is the only immigrant they hate.
Yo, there's
no borders.
That's a funny bit.
No one's illegal.
Hey, listen,
but these people shouldn't have been here.
We let a Spanish-speaking guy into America once. Went great.
Can't
see any problem with that ever.
Ended the Mayan Empire. They gave them all fucking diseases. Jesus Christ.
No, it's
hilarious. So think about what they did, what Cortez did to Mexico.
I know.
My God. I know, it's nuts.
Yeah, fucked up shit
Yeah, it's
happened.
human beings did that. But also, Yeah, bad. The diseases, the slaughter. Also, what they did to each other was horrible.
Yeah, I mean, human beings do fucked up shit.
Yeah, and
That's
always
what it
have.
is. We're here now. What are we
Yeah.
gonna do now? That's my worry. It's like, what are we gonna do now? It's
Yeah.
like you go into the doctor, you got lung cancer, and the doctor's like, let's talk about all them cigarettes you were smoking. And it's like, why don't we talk about all that chemo you're gonna give me? Like, tell me what we're gonna do now to get rid of this shit.
Right.
You know, Jay, it's funny when Andrew Schultz says whenever he's in an indigenous area, I would argue that's not a prerequisite. You can be in a non-indigenous area and you're still going to hear the land acknowledgement. I would argue if we ever have a Canadian land on the moon, I bet part of that speech is going to include an indigenous land acknowledgement. But in all seriousness, and I think natives see through this as well, instead of these hollow words, which might not be so hollow because they seem to be coming back to haunt us, and we'll get to the city of Richmond, BC soon, would it make more sense, Drea? There are 30 reserves, I believe, in Canada that are still under a boil water advisory. In the 21st century, really? We can't give these people proper drinking water? They've got to boil it first. Why don't we fix that, which is a tangible thing to do, instead of these abstract land acknowledgements?
Yeah, I believe there's at least 36 that still don't have clean water, and that doesn't count BC. You have to go into a separate file that's more hidden who isn't drinking clean water here, but you're absolutely right. And also, in case people don't know what's going on, it is absolutely true that when you say these things, there can be a legal consequence to that. And that is being shown firsthand in the Richmond land grab that's taken place after the Supreme Court ruled that the Cowichan tribes can have Aboriginal title over fee simple property, which is supposedly the highest, most secure type of private land ownership rights you can have due to our Title Act in British Columbia. And so that's all being appealed or whatever, but you have these Richmond residents going, what the heck? And I looked back in 2021 after the false unmarked grave claims went around, and I saw that there were First Nations pressuring Richmond to go ahead and say, oh, how come you're not doing land acknowledgements like everybody else? What are you big fat racist? And the mayor of Richmond, Malcolm Brody, responded saying, back then in 2021, we can't because of court matters and it could have legal implications. So they have been getting your kids, your job has been getting you to do this. It's in your emails, all of this, to say you are on stolen, unceded land, which, David, you're right, nobody actually believes. No one's going to give up their property willingly for that cause. And that's a reason why some Indigenous people don't like this. They know it's all just gaslighting. However, we're seeing that you better hope you didn't say that on record, because you never know what court case you can be involved in. But in this case, the homeowners, the landowners aren't even involved in the case. This is all happening without their knowledge until it's too little too late, it would seem.
And Drea, a couple of things. One, right now, can anyone in Richmond that has a house sell it? Because I'll tell you, if I was a prospective buyer with all this uncertainty, there's no chance I'm touching that with the proverbial 10-foot pole, even if it's a good deal. And secondly, I think I might be speaking for millions of Canadians if this virus spreads, that everything you worked hard for decades. I think of Lady Menzo and I over 30 years trying to get the mortgage paid off, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and then I have some bureaucrat come by and go, oh, by the way, you might not have clear title to your house.
Right.
It's not going to end well. As I said to Sheila the other day, for me, I'm probably either going to end up in jail or in the morgue, because there's no way in hell I'm giving away my nest egg after all that work. What say you?
Exactly. And it's not even just about landowners. It's also about renters too, because now all of a sudden, we are still learning exactly what this means, and I'm still diving and dissecting that for everybody. So keep watching at stopundrip.com, which is our website about what I call reconciliation overreach in Canada. But if it gets to the point where, you don't have much say on your own land, then that becomes your lords. Now the First Nations are your landlords to a certain extent, to a certain degree, if you rent. And these are governments we can't elect. So there's a huge issue when 95% of the province or the country is non-Indigenous, and then there's this small group that have this huge say. So the map that you're seeing there, they already received by the Supreme Court a section that they said it's about 8 kilometers long, and they said, yep, this is Aboriginal title now because you guys picked blackberries back in the day, apparently, according to oral testimonies. And now the Cowichan tribe is appealing it. Those tribes are appealing it, saying, no, 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 we want way more. So there's way more in the grabs and hundreds of homeowners. And 100% of British Columbia is currently being fought. I think 5% is about not, okay? So 95% of British Columbia has been fought, being claimed for by over 200 bands. They're all fighting for all of British Columbia.
This is unbelievable. But Drea, tell me, since you are in BC, how does this help the truth and reconciliation movement? This looks more like retaliation than reconciliation. This is throwing gas on a fire, I think, when you're going around to private property owners and saying your title might not be as safe and sound as you think because of a court decision. That's what I'm getting at. There's less reconciliation and more retaliation at play here.
Absolutely. This isn't working towards truth and reconciliation. It's kind of like the second wave of the Black Lives Matter movement. It was really about trying to get Trump out, and how that wasn't actually about Black Lives Mattering. And some people could see through it. I mean, you saw Black home businesses and neighborhoods, they were the ones getting destroyed in their protests if that wasn't evidence enough. So that's what's happening with this truth and reconciliation. It's all tied into the unmarked graves. They use those false claims to push a genocidal narrative that our politicians actually recognize and adopt. From there, they've been strong arming people. We were doing land acknowledgements before, but it's accelerated since then. And yet when you look at the Cowichan tribes case, well, they filed back in 2013, 11 years ago. And Musqueam, that nation is also trying to get land from Richmond. And go figure, they're the ones saying, oh, there's unmarked graves in Kamloops. So Richmond, can you please say that? We're waiting for you to say it. Like, it's such a scam. It's dividing people. In the legislature, I guess it would be 2 days. No, it was yesterday. Dallas Brody, the leader of One BC, went ahead and proposed a bill to stop land acknowledgements for tax-funded, like teachers and public servants, saying that they can't do it. They could do it if it is factually correct, meaning that if it acknowledges that BC has its own sovereignty. And she said that land acknowledgements are the sign of a suicidal nation. And I thought that was a really good way of saying it. Most shocking part of all of this is with all British Columbians looking to Richmond and going, oh my gosh, how could this happen? And can this happen to where I am now? Only 5 MLAs voted in favor in, going ahead and reading this. It doesn't mean it passes immediately, but, taking this matter seriously. Only 5. So you had Dallas Brody right beside her, Tara Armstrong right beside her on the other side, Jordan Keeley, which isn't too surprising. But out of the BC Conservatives, you only had MLA Heather Moss and MLA Harman Bangu. So right after this, I'm jumping off to interview both one of the BC Conservatives who did not vote in favor of it and Dallas Brody to get those two perspectives. But pretty serious time when we bow to identity politics to the point that land security in the province, perhaps the country, goes by the wayside.
What a fiasco. Drea, as I say down at the hockey rink, last minute of play, because we have that hard out at 2 p.m. Are there any more super chats that we need to get to?
Les Bro says, welcome. Oh, welcome to partial premium member. Les Bro, was I supposed to read that? I'm a little confused. That's all
What's a partial premium member? That's a new one for me.
Say that again. Oh, okay. I'm like you, David. I'm not very good with technology, even though I'm on it all the time. People just assume like I understand how things work, and I don't. So Les Bro just became a partial premium member with Rebel News. So you can too. And I assume there's a way to do that, but I don't know how. But please do it. It all helps. And you stay in the know. You get some exclusive stuff. So that's real fun.
Well, welcome aboard, my friend. And there you have it. So it is 2:00 on the nose, which means it's not even lunchtime where you are, Drea. So given the time change. So thank you so much for co-hosting. And I want to thank everybody that tuned in. A special thank you to all those who gave us a super chat. That's how we make our money here. We're not taking it out of your bank account like the mainstream media is with the Mark Carney corporate journalism money that goes to them. I'm stumbling over it because I get so angry just thinking about this conflict of interest. I will be back here with, I believe, Sheila Gunn Reid on Monday. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And as always, stay safe and stay sane.